And we're back with more on NewsTalk Saga 960. So very glad that you could join us on this Thursday edition of the Mark Petronis Show. Well, if you've ever wanted a Bitcoin rabbi, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so we have Benjamin on the show on a pretty regular basis. In a way, I think of Benjamin as our Bitcoin rabbi, a guy who comes on and he walks us through the paces. This is what Bitcoin is. This is how you get into it. This is how it might help you hold on to your money while fiat currencies gradually erode and who knows, fade away into nothing at some point in the future. Well, here's a real Bitcoin rabbi. His name is Michael Caras. He's coming to us from Albany, New York. Albany, New York. And Michael is special because, okay, he got into Bitcoin, started researching it in 2017, did a lot of work on finding out exactly what it is, ended up writing a book for kids, except I think that this is such a great book that I think adults will probably get a lot out of it. And I want to welcome Rabbi Michael Caras to the show. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
All right. So you're a rabbi in upstate New York, Albany?
That's correct.
Okay. And so what got you involved in Bitcoin? What drew your interest to cryptocurrency?
Well, from my youth, teenage years, I studied and had an interest in economics, and the nature of money. I read about the gold standard and about different schools of economics. I was a big fan of Milton Friedman. And so when it took me a while they say about Bitcoin, it's never really the first time it hits you. It took many years of kind of seeing it and not understanding it. And then once I kind of thought of it as just a purely technological thing. And I thought it was similar to some kind of like video game currency. But when I realized that it really had a deep economic potential to it in 2017, that's when I really started putting my head into it and became involved in understanding it and meeting people and then writing about it myself.
Did you have an aha moment, or was it more of a gradual thing? Like, can you actually remember a day when you said, "Oh my gosh, I get it now. I think I understand."
It was probably over the course of about a week or two. I know that the first time I ever bought any Bitcoin, it was that period where there was so much less material online in the earlier years, but 2017 is when it started picking up. People were writing books about Bitcoin and podcasts and videos. And so, if you went down through YouTube, you could spend, day and night. And so it was through one kind of experience like that. I also have my older brother works in the cryptocurrency space and was before that in the high tech space in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And so he had that tech background and was interested from that side. And I had it, an economic interest. And so we kind of discussed and debated that through. And so we both really got involved in the Bitcoin and crypto space at that time.
And I got your website up. It says that you study Jewish law and ethics at Yeshiva. I'm sorry, can you pronounce that correctly?
Sure.
I don't want to butcher it.
Sure. A Yeshiva Ohr Tmimim in Kfar Chabad, Israel, which is
I would have
a little
definitely
village. And
that
was the rabbinical school that I studied in.
All right. And then you currently work, you have a flock where you work at a synagogue type of deal?
So I'm not a pulpit rabbi, or I'm not the rabbi of our synagogue. We have a senior rabbi who is the rabbi, but a number of the members are rabbis as well, and we can perform some of the duties that are necessary for the community. But primarily, I've been a teacher. That's how I've served as I do work in our synagogue and do help perform some of the functions. But I've been a teacher for elementary and middle and high school students for the past 10 years.
I'm just wondering, Rabbi, do any of your colleagues, your friend, your rabbi buddies ever say to you, Michael, what is this about? Well, this is
certainly.
Really, I mean, is it consistent with the teachings of the Torah is what I'm saying. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know much about the Torah, but do they ever say, well, it says here in this passage that maybe you should think twice about this? You ever get some of that?
Not really, because we've seen different forms of money throughout the Torah, from silver shekels to to the modern Israeli shekel, to credit, to checks, to the Torah allows for various different types of currency and monies, and it's actually there are discussions in the Talmud about using different kinds of money and transferring them, and how to do them, and how to value them. But it's not so much of the Torah perspective on technology, which really money is a technology and Bitcoin is a technology, is not about whether or not you can use it or not, but rather it's how you use it, and to use things in the proper way. But if something is invented and something can be used for good, you can save in it, you can spend in it, you can do any of the functions that you can do with any other kind of money, whether it's a fiat money or a hard money like gold or gold standard or literal gold or silver coins. The main focus is about using those for good, and so I don't get a lot of pushback against it, but there are a lot of people that have difficulty understanding it. And like the general population, I think that the big gap is by age. Younger people, younger rabbis, younger lay people have kind of an innate understanding. They're the internet generation, and whether they grew up with tablets or pre-internet or something, they have this understanding. Kids that grow up with video games today, they know what a digital currency is, and so that's kind of an innate understanding for them. And older folks who have had a bank account their whole life and have trouble using, maybe online credit card purchasing, have a hard time understanding a currency that's only online and only exists in the computer. It's just more difficult for them to understand.
Rabbi Michael Caras joining us from Albany, New York. And I've got your the Amazon page where people can get this book, either for their kids or for themselves. I mean, I imagine there are grown-ups out there, Michael, who say, you know what, this isn't a bad starter for me. This is, this is where. Talk about that.
One of the quotes on the back, one of the recommendations is, I have you've been trying to explain Bitcoin to me for the past 2 years, and this is the only thing that could do it. Signed from Grandpa. So I've really seen it, that a lot of people, there are a lot of Bitcoin books that are hundreds of pages long, that go into technology, that go into economics, that go into philosophy and human rights and all of those kind of things. And I have read several, and I recommend them to people. But sometimes for somebody who's really starting at the beginning, you need just something that's approachable and easy. And so I say, the best way to give this book is to give it as a gift to your sister, for her son. Really, it's for her to read for her son, but for her to read for herself, as well, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it sounds like your journey took two different stages here, Michael, because first you started off with, okay, I got to find out what this is about myself, and I got to read up. So you got a real depth of understanding around cryptocurrency. So you took a couple of years, figured out what it's all about, and then you had to figure out not only how to write about it, but how to, and I don't want to say the word dumb it down because that's insulting, but to communicate the principles behind cryptocurrency to people who don't understand it, including guys like myself. So, was that correct? Is that the sort of the trajectory of what happened here?
Yeah, well, this is where it comes in my teaching experience. Well, two things. One, that I've been teaching a children's age level for this amount of time, and not only teaching children, but sometimes when you're trying to, for adults, and you're teaching ancient texts and trying to translate them and trying to explain concepts, Talmudic concepts, you also need to use analogies, and you also need to simplify things. I've got 6 children of my own, and so when I wrote the book originally, I kind of had it planned for the age range for my oldest. So my oldest daughter was 7 years old when I wrote the book, and so I had it kind of her reading level and her understanding level in mind. but really the idea just, I had is influence from other books that I've seen similar. There's a book by Peter Schiff called How an Economy Grows and Why It Crashes, and it uses
Yeah.
similar, I don't think he'd be a big fan of my book because he's not the biggest Bitcoin fan,
No,
to
he's
say the
not.
least. But I borrowed from there. I borrowed from some other books that help to explain this. So others came before me and helped explain it and simplify it for me. And I use that. And my wife is a graphic artist, and so together we really were able to take what was my years of processing this information and put out this book that we have.
Well, let's talk about the book, Bitcoin Money, A Tale of Bitville, Bitville, Discovering Good Money. Okay, the description is the kids in Bitville realize they need a tool to help them trade with each other. Okay, and as they explore using different types of money, a strange boy moves to town and suggests a new idea. Bitcoin Money is a story for all ages, which helps answer the question, why Bitcoin? Well, I mean, they could, of course, just use regular money. Why not that? Why not
Um,
dollars?
Well, so in this world, they at the beginning they're just discovering money. These kids, they don't have any kind of money at all. So their initial interactions with each other is done through barter. On a very small scale economy, money is not something anybody wants for its own sake. Money isn't, you can't eat it, you can't sleep in it, you can't wear it. Money is the tool that we use to make exchange and trade more efficient, because only when you're dealing with a small group of people can you really trade with each other. A chicken for a pair of shoes, for you build me a house and I'll grow wheat for you. The kids in the book there, one is making lemonade and one is a painter and one mows lawns, and they originally just start trading with each other. They don't need any intermediary, but when things get more complicated and you're trying to keep track of who owes what to who and when you can trade, and there's a lot of coincidences that need to come together when you want to do trade or direct barter trade with each other. You need a coincidence of timing. You both need things at the same time. A coincidence of location, you have to be there with each other. Of want, of that you want what the other person has to offer, and of amounts, that you have to have something of equal amount at the right time. So those don't work out, and then they say, what can we use as money? They look around, grass, lemonade, bicycles, trees, anything that they have in front of them to see what they can use. But none of these things have the properties of money that are necessary. That needs to be something that is transportable, that is divisible, that is durable, that is recognizable. All of these attributes of money that people may not have described, but they kind of know inherently that that's makes something good money. And they come to the conclusion, they find gold, or someone has a gold coin collection, and they realize these gold coins, you can get small amounts, large amounts. They has, as far as everything else that they have in front of them, these coins make the best form of money. And that's kind of what humanity discovered. For thousands of years, hard metals are what were used as money. Whether it was copper, gold, or silver. And so that's what they start off using. But the problem that we see with gold is really it has a few difficulties with the transportability and the divisibility. That it's not easy to walk around with gold and silver coins. At some point you need a bank. And so they develop banking. These kids, they take all of human history and they compress it into about a weekend. And banking with a 1-to-1 gold peg, gold standard 1-to-1 peg. Then they develop fiat currency really, really quite quickly, and to the benefit of the fiat printers, because they're the ones who get the first wave of all the currency. So they go through inflation and hyperinflation, and then they discover Bitcoin. So it's the whole of human history just really summed up pretty quickly. But they decide on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin has the attributes of money that are kind of like a digital form of gold, that you can take it with you. You can divide it up. You can you can verify it. It's impossible to forge, to make a forgery of a Bitcoin. It's, all of the attributes of a hard money. It's the most important, at least from this perspective, is it's impossible to print any more of it. There's 21 million Bitcoins. There can't be made any more. And that's really what makes it, compared to fiat currency, just incomparably better, and a huge step up. And that's what they find. And I kind of gloss over most of the technical aspects because I don't think that they're incredibly important, especially for a child, but really for anybody that is coming at, just like you don't know how, the Wi-Fi in your phone works, or how we're, talking through the radio and through the internet right now. All of these details people get caught up on. That I think that was one of the reasons why it was kind of for me to understand Bitcoin, because I was just seeing it so much from a technological point, and that was harder because I don't come from a technological background, harder for me to get. And then if you just see it as an economic tool, you can kind of say, well, the technology works because you can see that it works. And that's the story. That's the story of Bitville. They discover good money and they are satisfied with Bitcoin.
Rabbi Michael Caras joining us from Albany, New York. His book is called Bitcoin Money, A Tale of Bitville, Discovering Good Money. It's a paperback picture book, and something good to get over the holidays if you're looking to get something for your kids and maybe even for yourself, because as the book describes itself, it's really for all ages, and it explains why Bitcoin is money, how it works. I'm sure you don't go into opponents of Bitcoin too much, because right now, as you know, the federal bank, Mr. Powell and the rest of them, they're not huge fans of cryptocurrency. They want to regulate it. We've seen hearings, of course, congressional hearings, in which people who are advocates of cryptocurrencies have found themselves on the hot seat, having to explain why it is that cryptocurrencies are needed in a world where you have greenbacks and you have the reserve currency in the United States. Why bother with this? Meantime, many of these same people, of course, are concerned about the unbelievable levels of debt, the money printing that goes on. And you touched on it in the first section of the interview, whereby you can't print off trillions of these things. There's a set number of cryptocurrencies. And so over time, they're going to be divided up in the tiniest, minute level, so that you can do basic forms of purchasing with cryptocurrencies. But there will never be any more than 21 million of these things. And so once they are completely mined, then there's not going to be any more mined. But those same 21 million are still going to be continued to be distributed and presumably go up in value over time. How do you see cryptocurrencies going up? Oh, I mean, we've seen it at a certain level. Like right now, I think it's in the $48,000 mark, right around there. It has gone down, it has gone up. And so there's a certain range that it's been trading in. Maybe give us a take on how you see it breaking out of that range in the days ahead, and what sorts of economic headwinds maybe regular currencies, fiat currencies, face, and why that might be bullish for Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, just to first address, I think that there were hearings in Congress, and it was not really focused on Bitcoin so much, but other cryptocurrency companies. And a lot of the one of the major differences is that Bitcoin is a truly decentralized cryptocurrency that has no company behind it. The founder, Satoshi Nakamoto, completely disappeared. The network is totally permissionless. So, Bitcoin wasn't called to the hearings because there was no one to call. And that's kind of one of the most important things of Bitcoin. And I do address that in my book as briefly as it is. So, the whole cryptocurrency industry really spreads from the gamut from one side to another of completely centralized to more moderately decentralized, where Bitcoin is really at the head of the pack there. So as far as Bitcoin in particular, I don't think of the price so much on short term. I don't pay much attention to it. I'm not a trader. I try to accumulate what small amounts I can, on a teacher and rabbi's budget, responsibly. But I look at this as like a long term. I don't see, the experiment of the fiat currency that we're dealing with right now is not, it hasn't been here forever. Even the US dollar, is, we look at the US dollar as being, 100, the United States is 250 years old, but the US dollar and the version that we have of it right now is really only from 1971, when Nixon took us off the gold standard. So it's kind of an experiment, whereas hard money is the more status quo of what humans have used and preferred, for all of history. So I think that the amount of spending that we're doing, the amount of debt that we're accumulating. I'm not a trained economist. I know that there are different schools on this, and there's Keynesian, and there is modern monetary theory, and all these things. But in my humble view and my perspective, if you have something that's a completely limited supply, absolutely limited, 21 million Bitcoins, it will never be more of that. And then the counterbalance of what you're trading against is the US dollar, which has an essentially infinite supply. And they're kind of proving how infinite it is, with the record level of spending that we have. I just, I'm long term see that it's almost inevitable that the money is going to flow into harder assets, like Bitcoin. I mean, we're already seeing money that currency flows into any asset, any kind of store of value, whether it's real estate prices going through the roof and the stock market going through the roof. But I think that Bitcoin has advantages over those as well, because it really can be used as money. It's a liquid money, whereas stocks, you can't. Bitcoin can be a store of value and a money as well. You can save in it and you can spend in it, but stocks and real estate and that can't do that. Even gold, none of those things can be used as actual money like Bitcoin can.
And now we see inflation eroding the capacity of Americans, Canadians, everybody else around the world, in terms of their ability to buy stuff. I mean, at the grocery store. So, forget stocks for a second. I mean, try going to the grocery store, buying stuff, fueling up your vehicle. All these things are going up in terms of the value. Do you think it's inevitable that fiat currency, the most important one in the world right now, the US dollar, that collapses? Do you envision that scenario?
I don't really know I don't know how it ends. I don't know if collapse is the right word. I've seen. I don't think, it's a kind of a boring answer, but I don't think I'm well informed enough. I don't think my opinion on it is really that worthwhile as as far as I'm a rabbi, but as far as economics, I consider myself a layman, that I'm not sure which way that it goes. The US government has a lot of tricks up its sleeve. So does it collapse, or does it? I mean, the thing about the US dollar is that it might be inflating away, but it's still better than all the alternatives. I mean, I'd rather hold US dollars than basically any other fiat currency. So if it's all relative, the dollar's inflating, the euro's inflating, the pound is inflating. I don't even know what's happening with the Chinese currency, but they're all kind of in line with each other. I think that a hard currency is preferable to keep your savings. It's not just about your spending, but it's about your savings. Right now, you cannot save money in the US dollar. It's just not. You are just watching it wash away and erode away. And so I mean, savings, they have to be somewhere else. And so I think Bitcoin is a excellent option if you can't handle the volatility. I mean, it's not good if if you bought at 60,000 and now it's at 48 and that's a 15% drop and that scares you. That could be it. But for a young person and with a certain amount of their net worth or that they're willing to put away for a long term and say, you know what, this is for my future, this is for my children. I imagine that when my children, these kids who were born with a Bitcoin world, they were born after Bitcoin was invented in 2009. They were born into a digital age. A digital currency is going to be the thing that makes sense for them. And so I'm pretty comfortable saying that the money that I put away for my children is not going to be in US dollars, but it's going to be in Bitcoin.
Rabbi Michael Caras joining us from Albany, New York. His book is Bitcoin Money, a tale of Bitville discovering good money. And I'll tell you, I think one of the things I like about the book, the premise of it, how you've proceeded with it as an explainer, is that it is also secretly so, a primer on free market capitalism. Because you know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't know if this was a conscious attempt on your part or whether it just kind of worked out this way. But as you lay out the various principles of Bitcoin, you are also laying out why free market capitalism is still the best system on the planet for the distribution, for the creation of wealth. Was that a conscious decision on your part?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's very subtly put in, but they're definitely it was absolutely my intention, and that's the point, is that when people are free. I mean, I said earlier that I was very influenced by Milton Friedman, the economist, and his book Free to Choose, and so I've always been a proponent of that. And I mean, as far as much as the U.S. debt and inflation, all of that, it's still the place where I choose to live now because it has relatively free market economy compared to the history of the world and compared to other countries. That's why it's prosperous. So that's what I value, and I think Bitcoin is the perfect money for a free market economy because it's free market money. It's money that has no, I mean, if we really think of all monies have no intrinsic value for why they're valuable. Even gold is only valuable because we value it. But Bitcoin, because it came so recently from absolutely zero value when it was invented, it was zero. And it only became valuable because people saw the qualities of it and they chose to interact with it. It wasn't forced and hoisted upon them by a government as fiat, which is what the word fiat means. It means by decree. Bitcoin is absolutely the perfect free market money, that it can't be manipulated. It can't be, it doesn't require a third party to interact with. You don't need to trust somebody else to use it. You can hold it yourself. You can verify it yourself. And so that's why it's the perfect free market money.
And yet, when you have so many young people, children, being indoctrinated at such a young age to Marxist principles in the school system, we've seen it certainly in Canada. It's been going on for decades. In the United States, where you've got these far left woke types, infiltrating and infesting academia, telling our kids that, well, capitalism maybe isn't the best system, and communism got a bad rap. It would have worked if only this and if only that. But this kind of pushes against that a little bit. So I'm hoping that, and I don't know if that was part of your intention as well, when you're seeing, polls suggesting that young Americans seem to think that socialism is maybe the way to go. Is this a way to counter that sort of trend?
Well, I don't know how much my book can be, the drop in the bucket, the drop in the ocean against the wave. I guess it's a few comments on that. Is one, I think there's always been this trend of young people to kind of think of fairness I mean, if I've kind of said that pretty much every child is born as a communist because they live in a household where their parents are in charge and they make all the money and make all the decisions, and everyone's supposed to get a fair, the siblings are supposed to get fair. You actually have to learn capitalism and go out in the world. And so I think that it's something that you start off as young people, and then you grow, the old saying, a young person who's not a socialist and an old person who's not a capitalist, that old saying. So hopefully people grow and develop into it. I also think that there's kind of a dichotomy being developed in the United States in particular of, the country is kind of splitting into sides of I mean, a lot of different things culturally but also economically, politically. And it's unfortunate. I wish that there was more middle ground, but I don't know that there is. And I don't know that there is going to be. I'm not sure that I predict that. So I see that there are a lot of people that there are young people, and there is a big portion of the United States who still do, hold by free market capitalism. And I think that is never going to go away. So I don't know if my book is more just preaching to the choir, and finding people who are on that side of trying to believe in free markets and free money and entrepreneurism. I also discussed that, or I introduced that a little bit in my book of entrepreneurism. I also slightly mention about charity and about taking care of each other. The people who are successful, have a personal responsibility to take care of people who are less successful, which is an important value that kids should know. So I hope my book, I mean, we've sold about 20,000 copies right now. So it's been super successful, beyond what I imagined. It's the only book and the first book I ever wrote. And I didn't know if it would pick up any traction, but I'm hopeful that it has, affected a lot of people, as many as it can. It's also been translated into, I think, 12 languages right now. So it's gone around the world, not just in the English speaking countries.
Well, I hope you maybe send a copy to AOC or Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York
actually,
City.
I have sold. I sent copies to I did a fundraiser about 2 years ago, and I sent about 400 copies to the Congress. I sent to all 100 U.S. senators and about half of the congresspersons. So I did send one to AOC, but most of them, I doubt they probably didn't make it to her or to other Congress people. I did get a few letters back of people who did receive them, but the majority just went unanswered. So they're floating around Washington D.C. though. I'm sure that they made it somewhere amongst those staffers.
Well, that's good to hear. Rabbi, thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope you come back again. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure. My pleasure.
Rabbi Michael Caras. And check out his book, Bitcoin Money, A Tale of Bitville, Discovering Good Money. And we're going to take a brief time out, commercial break, because we got to make some money here as well at Saga 960. We'll be right back, though, after this brief commercial break.